Da, 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 da. Scene management. So at this point, our player Clink can wander around in any direction and collect things, little sound plays, and the text updates on there. But once I've done that, we're kind of like a little bit stuck and a little bit kind of like lonely. The camera's following us around, which is great, but there's nothing else for me to interact with. So this video is going to be about adding in buildings with doorways, which will take us to other scenes. So like the inside of the building, like a shop or house or something like that. So one thing I want to point out is we are currently on our sample scene, and within our scenes folder, that's the only scene which is currently there. So we're going to be adding more scenes at some point. But first things first, let's get in a couple of buildings. So I've got a blue house, I've got a normal house. Say normal, there's not normal at all, is there? And a red house, which I've brought in here. And I'm going to drag my blue house up on here, and you can see the scale is way off on this. So I might need to do something about that at some stage because I know as I drag it out, the quality will go. But what I'm really looking at this stage is the door of the house and the player to see if they round about the right proportion. And at this stage, they'll do actually. So I'm just going to drag it up and drop it there. So if I press play, and I get a clink on the run again. I come up to the house, and it's kind of nice actually the way the camera's following us now, so we can actually see some perspective. I think that's the right word. But obviously, I don't want to be running all over the house as I am at this stage. So the way to get around that, we need to add a collider to our house, and I've got box collider already set. Now you could use a polygon collider, but I know it does get a little bit messy with these bits here, and maybe that's something you can kind of play with yourself. But anyway, box collider is going to be added. And you'll notice with the collider, because these bits stick out, actually drop down a little bit. So I'm actually going to edit the collider so it is quite tight, if not a little bit higher than the door bottom itself then. Okay. Now if I press play, this time Clink will be able to interact with it. And as I do, you'll notice that doesn't look quite right. And in fact, I can't actually get to the place I want to on this. So let's fix the player rotating round as well. That's a bit of an annoyance. So let's click on our player. That's the canvas. Let's click on Clink, sorry. And on rigid body, we are just going to click on constraints and freeze the rotation on Z to stop us basically spinning it around. And the other thing I want to fix, my collider, if I actually walk up to there, now I can't actually get my body close to the window. It's kind of like the top of my collider on this player will kind of stop there. So I can't even get close to the house really. I'm looking at it from a distance. So if I double click on Clink to get him a little bit closer, I'm just going to adjust the collider on this. So it's a bit kind of narrower, a bit tighter, and I'm actually going to bring that down so it's the bottom half of the torso. So this time, just to show you what that does, before we actually start talking about a doorway, I don't rotate anymore as I bang into it, but I can actually get quite close to it because the collider is on the bottom half of this. Now it's a little bit scruffy on the side where you can still see me above there, and I'd like to be able to get closer to the building as if I was going to the back of the building. And obviously our text keeps disappearing behind that as well, but that's something I'm going to look at fixing at a later stage. But more importantly at this point, I am going to add a doorway to our house. Now, you might be thinking there's already a door there, but what I'm talking about is our own door, such as a sprite, such as a square. And the square's gone behind the house. We just need to bring it so it's in front. And I'm going to drag it down so it is roughly about that area there. And if I use the rectangle tool, I can move it so it kind of covers the doorway itself. And two more things I need to do. I need to change it so it is see-through, so no one will be able to see that there is this box over the front of the door because we just don't want this big white block over the front of it. And I also need to add a box collider. I also need to make sure that this trigger is selected. Otherwise, what I'm planning to do next in terms of interacting with the door, it won't work. Now, before I actually go any further, if I double click on square so it gets a bit closer, and I'm looking at the box collider of it, and if I click on blue house, then you'll see the box collider is very kind of close to it. It's not so bad actually as it looking at that, but I might just slightly adjust the box collider so I know that it does actually come beneath the box collider for the blue house. Otherwise, we can't actually make contact with it, if that makes sense. Right then. So we've got our collider set up, we've got our door set up. So what we need to do is actually make a scene for the inner of the shop. So if I come on to scenes and I right click and I go up to create and I choose scene, and we're going to call it blue shop, like so. And in our blue shop, if I double click on it and I press save because our sample scene, the work we've just done there hasn't saved at this stage, this is what our blue shop looks like. So it's basically back to the beginning as such when we first started Unity, but this is a new scene. So we still got our sample scene, but this is what our blue shop looks like. And at the moment, that's what the camera looks like. And in fact, I'm going to keep it as blue because it's a blue shop. But what I am going to do is bring in my player, and I'm also going to add a rigid body to it. And I'm going to make sure the gravity is set to 0, otherwise it's just going to drop to the bottom of the screen. And I'm going to freeze rotation like we did on the other one as well, because we don't want that happening again. And I'm going to also add a box collider. And I'm then also going to add, and I'm not going to drag and drop across. If I click on add component and start typing in the script I want to add, player movement, that's get added as well. So if I press 8 on there, I will be able to actually start playing. So while I'm in the blue shop, if I press play, it will actually play what's on this particular scene. Now, straight away, I know that something's going to go wrong with a player because the scale is 1, 1, and 1. Remember on our code we did for our player movement, we actually scaled it down so it was smaller because I didn't want it so big. So I'm actually going to grab those numbers while I'm here, copy them, stop it from playing, and then just quickly change these bits here. And then as we're walking around, there shouldn't be an issue. So at the moment, then we can walk around. We've got no way of getting out to the shop, but technically at this point, we haven't actually got a way of getting into the shop either. So I'm going to go back on the sample scene. I'm going to save what's on here. And now we're going to actually start talking about the code we will need to kind of put onto our player. So when it comes in contact with this, it will transport us to the inner of the blue shop. Now, the one thing I need to do before I start looking at the code is making sure that there is a tag on this door, because at the moment there currently isn't. So I'm going to click on tags. And remember, we did like eggs and so on before, and I've already added a blue shop door, a blue shop exit. And you could, if you haven't got these already, which you wouldn't, you click on add tag to make that happen. So I'm going to tag this with blue shop door. And the idea will be on our code. So I'm looking at our player movement code. So I'm going to double click on that so it loads up. There it is. We're just going to add a couple of lines to it. So first and foremost, we need to take that line there and pop it at the top. And this is basically a library to allow us to be able to kind of interact with different scenes. So we need to have that there at the top. And then underneath these bits here, which is the moving round and so on, underneath the void update brackets. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to bring across just this bit here. Now, there are other things on there, but we'll talk about those a little bit later. So let's paste in this bit of code. And what this code is basically saying is when I come in contact with something which is called blue shop entrance, and it's not called ours, it's called blue shop door, our tag is, take the player to the blue shop scene. And remember, our blue shop is actually called blue shop. It's not blue shop scene like that. So just want to make sure I've got those things right. So the door is actually tagged as blue shop door. The scene is called blue shop, and I can see it there. Now there is an error message. Let's go back and have a look. I think I didn't bring enough brackets over, so I think I do need to put another bracket in somewhere here to add the closing one for that guy at the top there, look. So if I save that, and let's go back into our game. Now what should happen is, because I've put the door on there, I've put the tag on the door, the box collider, I've made sure it is trigger selected. When I come in contact with the door, I should be transported to that scene. But I get an error message. Oh, right, that's right. Now, if I press play, so this was a deliberate error if you haven't already guessed. If I go, so we've done all the code, it's perfect, it's fine. However, in file and build settings, we've only got our sample scene in here, which is this scene here. To get our blue shop scene on there, we actually need to go to our blue shop scene. We need to save what we've just done on sample scene, and I just press add open scenes, and it appears there. So this time, when I go back onto the sample scene and I press play, and I roll on over to the door and I come in contact with there, it takes me to our blue shop. Now, obviously, there's a couple of things on here which need to be sorted in respect of I can exit, I can basically leave this. I don't want to, I have to put gliders around there. And I haven't actually got an exit at this stage. So on our blue shop, I'm just going to really quickly add on a block like we did for the door. I'm going to tag it as Blue Shop Exit. And I also need to add Box Collider to it, a 2D one. And I've got to make sure I tick this is trigger. Okay. Now, at this point, I can run into it at this stage, but nothing will happen because I haven't actually put anything in the code to say, well, what happens when I get in contact with the Blue Shop Exit? So I'm going to copy that bit of code there. I'm going to paste it underneath and just slightly adjust this so it's Blue Shop Exit. I think that's what the tag was. It's going to take me back to our sample scene, and it's got a couple less on it as well. I've hit save, and when I come back to Unity and we let it do what it's got to do, and I should now be able to go from one shop into another shop. So if I go, what am I talking about? From one scene to another scene. So if I come in contact with the box, it takes me out here. If I go into the doorway, it takes me back in. A little bit of an issue is when you leave a shop, you don't kind of appear in the car park in the middle of the road. You actually normally appear straight outside it. So that's something we're going to look at in the next video. And another thing, eggs remaining 20. Obviously, I want to collect eggs and I want to go in and I want to collect them in here as well. So I need that eggs remaining to come across, but I also need to tell me how many I've already collected, how many I've still got to collect. So that's another thing we'll look at in the next video. So what I'm going to do in preparation for that is add a couple more shops, or add a couple more houses around the place so I can walk around and go from scene to scene. I'll see you in the next video.